Fantasy playoffs creeping up on you, and you need some waiver wire help, and we are here for you. It is the Audible time to talk some waiver wire. Let's get to it.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football. I'm living in a fantasy. Football. Got everybody mad at me. Football. Cause every game I had to win. Football. I gotta be a champion. Football. I'm living in a fantasy.
All right, Sigmund, upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report. It's available at footballguys.com. It's written by you, and as we look over the quarterbacks, not a whole lot of help out there. What, Shadur, Cam Ward, maybe Jameis, right? We're kind of grasping for straws this week at the quarterback position.
Yeah, things have settled down at quarterback. You know, the churn is over, and we can separate who are the good quarterbacks to have as your number two quarterback. A lot of them are on rosters now. So, you know, Jameis Winston, we'll see if Jackson Dart clears concussion protocol. But we know now that if Dart misses any more time, including this week against New England, we know what we have in Jameis Winston. A joy to watch play football.
So awesome.
Yeah. And Cam Ward, and see, as we talked about on the recap show, you know, he's doing this with Xavier Restrepo and James Prochet. So and it was against Seattle. So he's starting to turn the corner. We'll see how he does against Jacksonville this week. But he also added value with a rushing touchdown. And you know, we see some of these teams look like they're adrift. Cam Ward's not adrift. And against defenses that start to check out as we get later in the season, maybe there could be something there. And then just your two quarterback super flex churn. Max Brosmer is probably the one guy I want to mention, just because at one point in time, we thought Kevin O'Connell can make any quarterback fantasy relevant. Joshua Dobbs, you know, Nick Mullins or whatever. I mean, so maybe Max Brosmer can surprise us because he has a lot of talent. Now, there are a couple of injuries on the Vikings offensive line right now. Darisaw got hurt again last week. Donovan Jackson was hurt. But Minnesota, actually, after this week at Seattle, has a pretty easy schedule in the fantasy playoffs. So if Brosmer can come on, you know, throw the ball to Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson and Aaron Jones, Jalen Naylor, maybe there might be something there.
Yeah, might be something there. How long does the J.J. McCarthy injury linger if Brosmer plays well?
February.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty much going to get benched, right?
I mean, that's the thing, right? The concussion symptoms give Minnesota an out, but it doesn't matter. Bench or don't bench J.J. McCarthy. He lived that game. If you're watching in the second half against the Packers, and it isn't all on him, but, you know, again, this makes me want to have a larger conversation about quarterback development and how it's in some ways impossible. You know, you either come out of the wound like Drake May and you're ready, you know, or you have to deal with this. And this might be why we're seeing Mac Jones and Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones all have this second act Baker Mayfield, because the expectations of first round quarterbacks are almost impossible to live up to early in their career. And then they're seen as a bust. And then eventually their talent does come to the surface, but it's not something that happens right away at the quarterback position, at least not for most of them.
The dirty secret in the NFL is it's all about fit.
Yeah.
And with those aforementioned quarterbacks, and hell, even Drake May last year, like, okay, what was the fit for Drake May? It was Josh McDaniels unleashing him this year.
Mm-hmm.
It was Mike Vrabel unleashing him this year. So, yeah, find your fit, and you can find your quarterback. Now, at the running back position, we've got some better news, just because they're players, either Kyle Monaghan you're holding on to and have been holding on to. And there's my man, Devin Neal. Now, we hate to see Alvin Kamara hurt ever, but I have a lot of confidence in Devin Neal. Liked him in the pre-draft process. Talked to him at the Senior Bowl. Take your drink. And Devin Neal compared his skill set to me, because I compared it to Kamara, and he kind of laughed at that. He's like, nah, I feel more like Joe Mixon. I'd take a Joe Mixon in New Orleans in the backfield for the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. And, Monaghan and Gainwell, I'm looking at percentages. They might be out there. I want to make sure that folks that are using our apps, make sure those guys, they know that they're priority pickups. Neal's an interesting guy. You know, I don't think that he's empty the wallet guy. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One, we'll get to tight ends and Taysom Hill. He had 10 carries last week. He had 8 red zone opportunities. Taysom Hill was supposed to hit last week. I'm not saying that because I played him in a couple of lineups and lost, and it was the reason I lost. But so Taysom Hill's going to get short yardage. Taysom Hill, we've even seen them use him as an actual tailback at times. But Devin Neal has the receiving chops, and Devin Neal is a player that I think that has shown that he's going to stick around. However, Nick Underhill, and you see, we talk about the names that you trust, right? I mean, Mike Reese and Matt Mayoko and so on. This is one of the names you trust, Nick Underhill and the Saints. And he says, what we know is Alvin Kamara is going to miss time. He's going to miss this weekend against Miami. However, Nick Underhill mentioned that Kamara and his camp tend to beat these timelines. So might only be 1 week or 2 weeks. Very possible. So I don't know what the window is going to be for value whenever Kamara is out. And I know that there's been some articles and things run. You saw that one CeeDee Lamb said he spends $1.3 million on his body every year or something like that. I mean, I know because the love of my life, Kate, she is really into cutting edge recuperation, healing technologies. And I know that Alvin Kamara is too. I know that he's opened himself up to incorporate a lot of things into his routine that maybe other players don't. So I don't doubt it that Kamara could be back earlier than we think.
We'll keep an eye on that. It is Alvin Kamara. He is superhuman and officially awesome. Let's go down the list at running backs there. There's Malik Davis. You already talked about Gainwell. There's Dylan Simpson. You love that speed on that screen pass. And Shadur Sanders giving that offense some more life to auxiliary players, not just Quinshon Judkins. You saw Harold Fannin, of course, continuing to battle there as well, and Dylan Sampson do that too. Looks like you got Raheem Mostert on here too.
Right.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Well, Mostert is just wait to hear about Ashton Genty's knee. I'm sorry, ankle, not knee, ankle. We got that injury right at the end of the game. And if Mostert's a start, more unlikely players have hit going against the Chargers this week. Malik Davis is just the newest injury upside backup we need to know about. Jaden Blue just not endearing himself to the team. Miles Sanders on IR. So this Cowboys offense in the second half against the Eagles reminded us what they are capable of. And Malik Davis looked good on one of his 3 carries, about a 20-yard carry. Sampson's interesting, even with Quinshon Judkins. I don't believe he's in concussion protocol. I know he took that hard hit and sat out a little bit and then came back in. But I think we've also seen that Judkins is not a true every down, every situation kind of back. Against San Francisco this weekend, we might see Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett has 13 sacks in the last 4 games. 13 sacks in the last 4 games. I mean, and we saw Brock Purdy throw the ball to the other team too many times, even though they won on Monday night. So, it's possible that Cleveland's going to turn this. It's in Cleveland. Cleveland could turn this into a street fight. But if San Francisco has some success and can build a lead, then that's where Dylan Sampson comes in as a second half passing down back or a 2-minute drill back. And he might have value anyway, depending on what you think of Brock Purdy and San Francisco's offense ability to bounce back and maybe play with the lead in Cleveland. So Sampson, like you said, showing the speed on the screen pass. He was a back that a lot of people had in the top 6, top 8. You may be a tier below the backs that were going in the first, say, 40 picks, but certainly
better than RJ Harvey.
Yeah. One of the best of the rest, and he may get more opportunity to show that this week against San Francisco.
Okay, wide receiver position, and I'll let you opine, Bloom, if it was a weird week, because I'm looking over the list, upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report, and it's like, oh yeah, it is that thin out there.
Yeah.
Luther Burden, 5 to 10%. DK at 10 to 20%. John Mechie, 7 to 15%. Let's start with those 3.
Yeah, DK for the second time this year, and I'm not sure how many times this has happened. He's a rookie, a 4th-round rookie. He has scored on a return and a reception in the same game twice already. And this is Tennessee. This is a terrible offense. So we said it in the quarterback section. Cam Ward starting to turn the corner. Some of those punches are starting to land. And Chimere Dike, I'm going to make sure I get this right. Chimere Dike, he's basically the number 1 receiver. So explosive. And if you get return yards, I mean, he's a very valuable player. If you get return touchdowns, he still gives you that upside. Mechie, I'm just, see, like you said, F cancer, and congratulations to him for coming all the way back from that. And now actually showing what he can do. Because remember, he was a second day pick. And maybe not the exciting second day pick who projects as a potential number one receiver like Isaac Tesla or someone like that, but a really solid possession receiver. And that's what the Jets need right now. He had 6 catches on 7 targets last week from Tyrod Taylor. One of those was a 13-yard touchdown on 3rd and 10 in the red zone. And going up this week against Atlanta, he'll probably be the number one receiver again. He's a flex play. And then with Burden, this is just tough. You have so many viable targets with the Bears. And you have...
Now with more DJ Moore.
Right. DJ Moore scoring 2 touchdowns last week, right? And you also have Caleb Williams, who lots of great moments, but still inconsistent. So when you're spreading out the passing game among 5 or 6 targets with no one getting more than, say, 6 or 7 targets in a game, last week Moore had 2 touchdowns. That's great. But if you don't get the touchdowns, is he a good play? But the arrow is pointing up for Burden. And I'm not saying that Burden's going to truly emerge, but certainly as a wide receiver 3 flex. Now this week against Philly, and we'll see. We saw the really tough Vic Fangio defense for one half, and then we saw Dak Prescott and George Pickens break through in the second half. It's going to be really a fascinating test, although it's Black Friday, so I don't know. I'm not going to be shopping, but I don't know if I'm going to be watching football either. But Burden has that upside, but at the same time, would it be a surprise if he only had 1 or 2 catches this week? I mean, that's the nature of this Bears pass offense.
Yeah, and we'll be live on Friday doing the second part of our Week 13 preview. We'll do our Thanksgiving game preview and Black Friday game. NFL every day. Gluttony. Blah, blah. Here you go. Hopefully it's just good football. We got some more wide receivers to go over before we're out of here, including Ian's Cat asking about Nuke Hopkins. Let's get into that. And also Parker Washington, Darnell Mooney, Greg Dortch, Andre Yosevich, Christian Kirk, all here at the bottom.
And I didn't put Hopkins was a waiver pick up the last few weeks, but Lamar Jackson doesn't look right. And it is Cincinnati. So certainly as a what the heck flex, we'll talk about DeAndre Hopkins this week. But at the same time, I need to see Lamar Jackson look like Lamar Jackson before I can recommend that. Parker Washington's back with 5 catches, 70+ yards and a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence going up against Tennessee this week. I might like Parker Washington better than DeAndre Hopkins as a what the heck flex. Darnell Mooney reeled in a long touchdown from Kirk Cousins. We'll see when Drake London's going to be back going against the Jets. Again, these are your what the heck flexes. Greg Dortch, Jacoby Brissett. We'll see if Marvin Harrison's back. But filling the air with footballs, you see that speed. Dortch touchdown, 6 catches in back-to-back weeks. Christian Kirk. Now this is a tricky one because he only plays like 30% of the snaps, but you saw Davis Mills really zero in on him. It's going to be CJ Stroud, hopefully. If it's not CJ Stroud this week, it's time to really get worried for CJ for this year at least. But the plan is for him to be back against Indianapolis this week. Christian Kirk could be an important player in that game. Certainly Davis Mills leaned on him in the win over Buffalo. And then Yoshevich, now he gets to start because T. Higgins is concussed. And this was Joe Burrow is going to be back. Maybe he's the best what the heck flex for 1 week, just 1 week of all, because we remember that last year, I don't have the numbers in front of me, Cecil, but Joe Burrow versus Baltimore last year was like half of a fantasy season for some quarterbacks. It was ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen again this year, but certainly Thanksgiving night, you want something to keep you awake. Put Yoshevich in your flex position, and maybe you get your cornucopia will be of plenty.
Yeah, last year, 30 of 39, 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 INT. And then in the second game, 34 of 56, 428 yards, 4 touchdowns, no INT.
Only 4 touchdowns that time.
9 touchdowns in 2 games. Pretty good clip there for old Joe Burrow. Certainly excited for Bengals fans to get their quarterback back. Excited for y'all to join us here on the Audible. It is 20 years of this show, And we certainly appreciate everyone out there for enjoying the show. If you're listening via podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, what have you, if you're watching us here on YouTube, here on Twitter as well, we thank you very much. 20 years of doing this and having fun each time around. Couldn't do it without you. So we appreciate you very much. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe on this video. Let's get to the tight end position. And Bloom, thank God, because I'm looking at your list and we're like, thin at quarterback and thin at running back and kind of thin at wide receiver. Tight end's kind of robust.
Oh,
So
yeah.
thank you, Lord, because Brenton Strange, Harold Fannin, Hunter Henry, Colston Loveland, Colby Parkinson. Let's start with those guys. Is 7 to 15%, and Brenton Strange is 15 to 30%.
Right. He's the headliner. And see, this matches a year. I'm doing the tight end rankings, the projections every week, and I get down to like tight end 25, and it's like, maybe I would start that guy. I mean, it's a really deep year at tight end. I think that teams, Sean McVay showing the way, speaking of Colby Parkinson, where tight ends can be a very viable target, but also if they can block, they can give your defense, give the defense fits by giving your offenses multiple looks, like Brenton Strange. And Max Toscano, who's like the tight end guy. It's like we have Matt Harmon, the wide receiver guy. Max Toscano is fantastic on Twitter doing his tight end stuff, and he's right that Brenton Strange is actually in that George Kittle, Tucker Kraft mold. And what I mean by that is a very physical guy. And hey, Trent Baalke, we dunk on Trent Baalke. This was a good pick. I didn't totally understand it as a second round pick, but he's coming around now. He's Trevor Lawrence's favorite guy. You saw his first game back, 5 catches for 90-some yards. So, yeah. And now all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence is looking like a more interesting fantasy quarterback with Brenton Strange. Brenton Strange is a tight end one the rest of the way if he wasn't picked up his first week back. Hunter Henry, look, he had the best game of any tight end last week by 8 points in PPR leagues. Now, I know we have to suffer through some floor games with him, but if you have that kind of ceiling at tight end this year, he should be on a roster. He was in a little bit of a slump, and the Bengals are a slump breaker. Mark Andrews is a good play this week, by the way. Harold Fannin, like you said, he's with Shedeur Sanders. You have the connection there. And then this week against San Francisco, you would think Shedeur is going to have to throw more than 21 times. So Fannin's out there. And then Parkinson. And there's intrigue after this. Parkinson you saw with Tyler Higbee out. Some consistent targets. He had 4 for 41 and a touchdown in the first half last week. And then game was over because Baker Mayfield got hurt. But in a competitive game, will the game against Carolina be competitive this week? There's some more competitive games coming up for the Rams. But Colby Parkinson certainly is somebody that can help you as like a what the heck tight end one. And he, in this offense, has high ceiling. But that's not the end of the high ceiling tight ends this week.
No, not at all, because Mike Gesicki was back last week, now back with Joe Burrow, Gunnar Helm there, and then I'll allow you the runway for Taysom Hill, because you got a lot to say.
Yeah, and Colston Loveland too. I mean, Colston Loveland's kind of in the same position as Luther Burden, where it's tough for him to get enough targets to be a true ceiling play. He looks so good. Here, early 2026 fantasy draft strategy, draft Colston Loveland. I think you're going to really see the breakout year from him next year. But this year could be enough to have fantasy value. Mike Gesicki, again, just for this week. Gesicki and Yoshevitz. That's almost as good as Cecil and Sigmund. Where,
remember what Chris Mortensen told us? You don't often hear Cecil and Sigmund.
Yeah. Hey, never and never again. There can be only one. So with Gesicki, we saw last year, if one of the starting wide receivers is out, then Joe Burrow leaned on him. So we certainly saw last week Joe Flacco lean on Gesicki right away over Noah Fant. And this week, Gesicki could hit as a 1-week play. Gunnar Helm, he led the Titans in catches and yards, 6 for 51. So you can do worse than that at tight end. And with, of course, Cam Ward's playing better. We keep hitting that note. Some of his targets could attain some value. And then we get Taysom Hill. And, we'll see. Again, 8 times he touched the ball in the red zone. Didn't score. Then you also have him as somebody who can throw the ball. It didn't work out, but Kellen Moore's not averse to that. Not really using him much as a receiver, as a tight end. But we saw last year a 4-week stretch where he was very viable as a tight end based on his What would you even call his position? It's just the Taysom Hill position. I mean, that's how we know how unique he is. That there's not anybody else we can even compare to if we're thinking about somebody who's played a role like him. It makes fantasy football fun. And against Miami, you could definitely imagine him making it fun to have him in your lineup.
Yeah, I am thinking about calling Taysom Hill a Tay-back.
Hey,
I don't know. Like Tay-back, right? Because he's not
Yeah.
an H-back. He's not a fullback. He's not a tight end. He's not even an offensive weapon. He's a Tay-back, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I like
there
it.
we go. There we go. Okay, I got the Sigmund thumbs up stamp of approval. It is time for our audience participation in this show. And through 20 years, y'all have screamed this a lot. I need you to do it again. The universe needs you to do it again. In fact, we're on cue every time this year. The universe is waiting for us. Waiting. It's always waiting, Bloom.
Mhm.
And intention is fine, but action is everything. So I need your action in these next few moments, because there's some guys on your team where you're like, okay, enough, buddy, enough. I've had enough. And you've got to do something, not even drastic, just you have to do it. Again, action. So I want you to say it with me and scream it to the heavens, because now it is time to cue the Chalk D. Sigmund, week 13, shut him downs.
Yeah, and there's plenty, as always. I think that if you're holding on to J.J. McCarthy for that playoff schedule, time to shut him down. Oh, Joe Flacco, we'll always remember what you did for us, Joe. Probably time to shut him down. I'm open to shutting down Ramondre Stevenson for one of the priority names. Devin Singletary with Tyrone Tracy getting goal line carries and moving ahead of him. Rashad White, assuming Bucky Irving's going to be back, he's the number 3 back. I don't think we're going to be holding on to him. Jordan Addison, again, we're looking at the Vikings offense. Maybe it'll come around with Max Brosmer. We might go from shut him down to pick him back up, but for now, it is a shut him down. Darius Slayton with Isaiah Hodgins making plays. Chris Godwin, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, or even Mac Hollins to a lesser extent, are right on that edge where it's like, tell me who's on the waiver wire, and I'll tell you. Like, I might not drop any of those guys, say for Kimray DK. Maybe I would for Devin Neal. I don't know. They're right on that line. Noah Fant, we're letting him go. Dallas Goedert, if someone said I can pick up Brenton Strange, but I have to drop Dallas Goedert. Yeah, I mean, I think we had that run of his red zone involvement earlier in the year, but it's not happening now. Now it's Brown and Smith. But this is how it is. The windows, they open, they close, and there's still some more windows left. Maybe we might hold on to see if it happens.
Yeah, exactly. And in week 13, before the fantasy playoffs, maybe you want to get somebody a ring. Maybe you just can't let go. So it's time to hold on. In week 13, who are those players?
Yeah, it's just a few. I'm probably holding on to Aaron Jones. Jordan Mason's coming on. Maybe they'll use him more to regulate this offense with his power running. Alvin Kamara, again, I'm not sure I'm going to dump him quite yet. Like, if someone said, well, who do I want for the rest of the season, Kamara or Neal? I'd say, well, do you need to play the player this week? Well, then it's Neal. But otherwise, again, Nick Underhill's kind of let us know, hey, don't think this is going to necessarily be a long absence. Jameson Williams, here we go again. Another 0. Yes, hold on to Jameson Williams. He had 3 straight big games going into this one. Don't spite drop him. That's one where you're going to see him used against you in the playoffs. All of the remaining games in the fantasy season for the Lions are indoors. So you're holding on to JMO.
Hold on. That's what we do here on this show as we count you down.
Oh, let me pop in. Someone asked
Yep.
Emmanuel Wilson. Absolutely, Emmanuel Wilson is a hold on, even if Josh Jacobs is back. People need to know this. In week 11, Josh Jacobs took a hit on his knee, and it swelled up, and he couldn't even flex it. It locked up. Now, they looked, and there was no structural damage. But that tells me, Cease, if he takes the wrong hit on the knee again, we're back to Emmanuel Wilson as the lead back, and 100 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. So do not let Emmanuel Wilson hit the waiver wire.
And it's kind of a math thing, just like life. We're close enough to the fantasy playoffs that someone like Wilson, there's no way in hell, unless I am.
Once we've seen him do it, it's like Sean Tucker. Like, once you've seen him do it, don't let that get back on the waiver wire.
Yep. Don't let it out there. Let it in. Let in the light, Bloom. Right? You're my light. You're my ray of sunshine every single day. Well, every day that we do the show.
Yeah. Well, but hey, my grandfather Israel Bloom said better out than in, but he was referring to bodily functions.
He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on all the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. 20 years. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Sending you all blessings out there. We appreciate you very much. He's Sig. I'm Cease. We are the Audible. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty?